Don't be scared of your period. Suck it up with Vampons. Cruelty-free, vegan, braided end for superior protection, hypoallergenic, and soft organic cotton, black design, BPA-free applicator, and so much more. You can buy refills for this red coffin-shaped box here in the middle of the table each month by saving and subscribing or buying as needed. Periods shouldn't be boring or unsafe. Save 10% off your orders by using code FRIGHTFLIGHTPOD with your first purchase. HSA and FSA eligible.
Welcome back, dear listeners, to Fright or Flight, the podcast where we rank, recap, and review every horror movie in a given franchise. This season is a bite-sized season. We're going to be covering a few shorter series, the first of which is the A Quiet Place trilogy. With a new one coming out later this month, we figured we'd go ahead and cover the other ones to catch up.
I'm Jumpscare Jared and/or Geraldine, the Fright of the podcast. I'm a horror movie lover and connoisseur.
And I'm Frankie, the Flight of the podcast. I am scared of scary movies. How are you doing today, Geraldine?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. We don't have a lot of set design for this season. You know, it's post-apocalyptic world, and I mean, what are we gonna do for that? You know what I'm saying?
I mean, we could have like rustled leaves, but it's not fall season, which I'm mad about because I'm ready for the PSLs, bitches. That's why I'm wearing Halloween shit today.
What's PSL?
Pumpkin spice latte.
Of course. Why wouldn't I know that, right?
Why wouldn't you know that? It's common knowledge.
Well, we don't have much on the table today. We do have some Vampons. I don't know if you guys are aware. They're like tampons.
They are
vampire
tampons.
themed.
Yeah, vampire themed. They're really cool. They're a newer brand, I would say.
Yeah.
But I figured let's jump on this opportunity to get some horror themed tampons to share on the podcast. So
yeah, for sure. And we have a promo code actually. You can get 10% off of them. They're cruelty and vegan free and FSA and FH. They're what?
FSA and HSA eligible.
Yes, those. But another reason to tune into the video version of the podcast, Geraldine has a new haircut.
Who is she? It's not me.
Yeah,
it's my clone.
So come watch the video version just so you can see her in her new hair regalia. And also subscribe to our YouTube channel. We'd appreciate it. You get all the new videos on your feed. If you do, also follow us on Spotify, of course. We're doing A Quiet Place this season.
We are.
There's only 3 of them. It's a very interesting concept, in my opinion.
I think so, too.
Yeah, it's a movie where some sort of breakout has occurred and the population of humanity has been severely cut down by creatures that hunt people based off sound.
Now, I will say that this reminds me, like the look of the creature that we get to see in the film reminds me of Stranger Things because they have like this big mind flare. Just the makeup of the body itself, like with all like the big arms that kind of are not like normal proportional size, like a human anatomy. Like, I don't know, they're just like big and long and they like run real fast.
The head reminded me of the Demogorgon.
I can see that too.
Yeah, for sure. And in general, kind of alien kind of vibes from that world.
Which is cool.
For sure. These creatures are blind, but the second you make a sound, they attack. So the family that we follow throughout the film has to find ways to survive, all the while being a family with a new baby on the way.
Yeah, I'd simply kill myself. I'm not even kidding.
This movie is actually the first horror movie I've ever seen in a movie theater.
I saw this one in a movie theater. This is actually one of my more not enjoyable experiences because it was very close up to the front of the screen, which I hate. I hate sitting.
That's never fun.
Never fun. I feel like I'm breaking my neck watching a movie, but I will say, like, it did make it a little bit more like intense being that close, but I still don't like it.
Were you fully reclined?
I think this was.
Oh, it was before?
I think it was a little bit before the recliners.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
If I'm being honest.
The recliners do help with the front row seating, for sure.
Yeah.
The worst for me, I remember, I think I went to go see Avengers Endgame, and our seats were at the very front all the way to the right. So not only, and it was a big theater too, not only were we looking like straight up, breaking our necks backwards, but we were looking straight to the left too. So it was very comfortable. It hurts my neck thinking about it. Yeah, it's not fun, but sometimes it's worth it. I love going to the theater. Yeah. John Krasinski, who some may recognize from a small niche television production called The Office, where he played some James Halpert character, apparently.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, he directed, co-wrote, and co-starred alongside his real-life wife, Emily Blunt, in this movie.
He also was one of the executive producers, which I thought was cool. Like,
Yeah.
he's got so many credits just from this one film.
Yeah, he definitely seemed like he had a big hand in every sort of area for this film. It kind of seems like a passion project to me. Yeah, I think it's his third directorial film that he's done. Together, Emily Blunt and John Krasinski make up the parents that we see throughout the movie. Now, all the characters in this movie have names.
Yeah.
Do you remember any of their names by the end of the movie?
So I wrote them down as they came up on the screen, but then there were 2, or actually 3, that I never knew. So I had to do my little Amazon Prime pause. And which, by the way, it's available for rent for like $3.59 on Amazon. I don't know.
It's free on HBO Max if you have HBO Max.
I have HBO Max. We literally looked, and I don't think. Well, actually, I don't know. To be fair, Patrick looked for me, and I don't think he looked.
I always Google it. If you type in where to stream and then the name of the movie, Google puts you up a list of like, here's where it's available to stream. Here's where it's available to rent.
I'm annoyed by that because I paid $3.59 for it. But either way, no harm, no foul. I knew Lee's name and Reagan. I didn't know Evelyn or Marcus or Bo.
Yeah.
R.I.P. to Bo.
I agree with you. I feel like without looking it up, it's kind of hard to tell what the names are just by watching the movie.
They're quiet as fuck.
So because of that, I'm actually just going to refer to all the characters by their actors' names instead of referring to like Evelyn, Lee, or Reagan. I'm just going to call them, John, Emily, and Noah, and Millie.
I didn't even know they had last names until I looked at the credits, and it was like the Abbott family, and I was like, oh.
I think that's cool though. It shows that it's a very visual movie.
It is a very visual movie, but I mean, it's nice to put a name with the characters so that you can connect with them more. It's almost like naming an emotion kind of thing. Like, to me, like if you put a name to something, it makes it more real.
Yeah, I will say I've always had a hard time in general when movies and just remembering characters' names. What I do appreciate though,
I think our listeners may know that.
What I will say though is part of the silence of the film and all, because of the concept of it, it does kind of remind me of if you ever go see like a Pixar movie, it'll play like a little Pixar short at the beginning of the film, and oftentimes those are no dialogue whatsoever. Like I remember, I don't know if you saw the dumpling one.
Like Bao, that is one of the best little Pixar shorts ever.
Things like that where like you can tell a story without any names, without any dialogue whatsoever, and it's still
I cried my eyes out watching that.
It's emotionally impactful. Yeah, and I feel like this movie succeeds at that by a long shot. I mean, I can't imagine how long the script was because there wasn't a lot of talking.
There was not. I think there was probably, all in all, maybe 2 minutes total of like dialogue. If you had to like compare it all.
Yeah, it's not a lot in it, but let's get down into the movie. Starting off with the first scene that we see between Emily and John. They have 3 children together. The movie opens up on the 5 of them looking for supplies. One of the kids is sick.
Yep.
So they're out at a convenience store in a small town. The small town actually kind of reminded me of a city near us, Guthrie, Kentucky. It's this very small, just like main road, and there's just a few stores on each side of the road.
This scene reminded me of The Walking Dead, but it is apocalyptic, of course, in nature.
Post-apocalyptic, yeah.
So I'm like, this is kind of enjoyable for that aspect as well. But again, I don't want to live in any world where there's any apocalypse. So as soon as it happens, kill me, or I'm going to do it myself.
I don't believe you. I feel like you got... Okay,
in this world
you have to live for Patrick. You have to live for your cats. You got to wait until things sort themselves out a little bit.
Say all of my family dies. I have no reason to live there.
Okay, for sure, yeah.
But also, hear me out. I would not want to live in this world specifically, in this universe, for many, many reasons.
Or who knows? I mean, there's books now about like aliens who come and like they're actually cool, nice, and there's some like books with a romance with aliens.
Did you know that I'm one?
Oh.
No, I'm just kidding. But no, I wouldn't want to live in this world because, first of all, I can't shut the fuck up. I would not succeed in that world. 2, they're barefoot throughout the entire film. I'm so sensitive with my feet. I can barely stand not wearing socks. Also walking barefoot in the southern part of Tennessee. I've always I've never done it successfully. Like I've always been like ow with like gravel. Like I don't understand how people walked on gravel and it just didn't hurt them.
Yeah, you can't make any noise in this movie or you're gonna die. And
yeah, and then also not being able to shower. Like
I've given some thought about that. One, you're a clumsy person.
Yeah.
You're very clumsy.
A lot of noise.
Secondly, God help you if anybody makes you laugh. As soon as you laugh, you're
Yeah.
done for.
That's true.
You're screwed.
I see. I wouldn't do well. It's just
No, you would
You'd
do
have to like cut
horribly.
my tongue off or something.
Yeah. I thought about it for myself. I snore. I've heard like I make a little bit of noise when I snore. So I think, that might deter me from having a good time.
He's what's the opposite of being hyperbolic?
Being genuine, sincere,
no,
honest.
No, you're underselling it. You're a very loud snorer.
Yeah, moderately loud, I'd say.
Yeah.
And so I feel like I'd have a hard time, especially when an outbreak. So I have like 8 hours until I have to go to sleep probably. I like to take naps. So don't have a lot of time to figure that out. Maybe I'll bury my head in the sand. Bailey, on the other hand, perfect for this world.
Yeah.
I feel like you could hand her like a Kindle, a tablet, and a charger. And she's good. She's
I'll be good
set.
to go.
Yeah, she'll like walk out of her room several months later after it's already over and not know that it even happened.
She's like, what's going on?
COVID times worked pretty well for me, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, she's used to it. She's, independent.
Self-sufficient.
Self-sufficient for sure, yeah. These fellas, though, they get their medicine that they're looking for, but while they're there at the convenience store, one of the kids wants this toy airplane. Mm-hmm. And the toy airplane...
It's a rocket.
Oh, it's a rocket?
Yes.
I like airplane. I'm going to call it an airplane.
I mean, it kind of looks like an airplane, but
Yeah,
but it is a rocket.
You're right.
They
it is
have
a
a
They
whole
rocket.
refer to it as a
conversation.
rocket.
They have a
It's
whole
definitely a
conversation about the
rocket.
rocket.
You're right, especially with the noises it makes.
It says NASA on it.
It does. I'm going to call it an airplane, though. But this toy airplane, this kid wants it, can't have it. John's like, no, this makes too much noise. They kind of freak out for a minute looking at it like, oh my gosh, I hope he doesn't use it at all, kind of foreshadowing a little bit. But as the parents walk out, his sister takes the airplane and hands it to him without the batteries and kind of winks at him. Like,
she's like, oh, like, no big deal, just our little secret kind of thing, which is sweet in nature, but kids are going to be fucking kids in this world. And of course he's like, haha, I got it back. I need my batteries, yo.
got the batteries, yeah. And then when...
Idiot kid. Idiot.
Well, that's what kids are.
Idiots, yes, they
They're
are.
dummies. They just don't know better.
They're just little stupid dumb idiot babies, and they're just figuring their ways in the world, and they would not be good in that world, I think.
Well, while they're on their way back to the farm, this kid's at the back of the line as they're walking across this bridge, and he starts making noise with it, and it starts making like these laser sounds and these bass sounds, and the rest of the family in front of him start freaking out. John immediately puts down the kid he was carrying, the sick kid, and starts running towards his youngest child, but he gets there a second too late, and the kid gets swiped.
Now, I will say this was no surprise because they literally showed this in the trailer. They showed this in the trailer.
Well, see, that's why I don't watch trailers. It was a surprise to me.
I mean, it still enticed me to want to watch it, which is why I watched it in theaters. But I was like, oh shit, that looks intense. It's crazy.
Yeah, it was really intense. I mean, rewatching this, I was already emotional from that scene.
I wasn't necessarily emotional from the scene, but I was like, man, that would really, really suck. Like, especially being a close-knit family as they seem, their only way of communicating. I mean, the oldest daughter, she's deaf as well. So I mean, like, they all communicate with ASL and everything. Like, they just seem like a very like close-knit family as well, and they're very communicative, except for in this instance.
Yeah, I feel like that was...
Communication would have gone much longer of a way, or like, hey, let's take the toy, we'll put it in our bag, so that, like, there could have just been more of a conversation. But of course, it is a movie, and that's how it was written for, the things to happen. So
right.
I also like that children are not safe in this universe. I like that.
Yeah,
That's like
I mean,
cool,
they show the
don't do a
stakes
lot.
off like immediately. First scene, it's like nobody's safe. We killed the youngest kid in here,
which is crazy because he was 4.
Yeah, 4-year-old kid.
4.
He's gone, baby. Poor thing. Yeah, it does suck.
It's a very sad scene.
In general, this movie for me was a very emotional movie. Like, I'm so happy that this was my first like dive into a horror movie in theaters. I mean, I watched this before we did the podcast. I watched it when it came out, and it impacted me. Before I was like super scared to go see any horror movie in a theater because in my head they're all like Paranormal Activity, and they're all gonna like jump out at me, and there's gonna be jump scares. And this movie, while it does have some elements of those kinds of things, it's a lot. It's a story first with horror elements. It's not a story based around horror elements. And I just found that I appreciate that so much. So if anybody out there is like me and doesn't watch a lot of horror movies, like, this is a good start.
What's funny is you see criticisms for every film, and the criticisms that I've seen around this movie are like, it's boring. And I'm like, are you kidding? Just the music alone really like made it so suspenseful.
Oh yeah, definitely for sure.
One swift move I mean, one step in the wrong direction, boom, it could be gone.
I can see how this movie was hard to watch in theaters, especially if you like concessions. Just because, could you imagine how quiet the room was and you're trying to open your...
I was so scared to eat my concessions because I was scared at any moment something would happen. I'd be like, like, I'd be so pissed off if something happened like that.
Yeah, you hate that kind of thing.
Yeah, because I like to be able to snack, and I'm like, oh my god, it gets really intense. I like to snack, I'm also like,
yeah. We all have those.
But also, it's so quiet that like you could hear.
Exactly. So when you're opening things, you're kind of scared to like, you don't want to interrupt everybody.
Or I mean, I'm not really much of like a candy eater when I'm at the theater. I just like the popcorn. I'm there for the popcorn. The other day I did have nachos, admittedly, and they were delicious, and I forgot how great they were. But either way, popcorn. Like it's not that loud. But
you guys are making me so hungry.
I know. I'm also very hungry.
See, go to the theater, grab some snacks, watch the movie. Save movie theaters, everybody.
Absolutely.
I'd
Get
appreciate
the
it.
passes. Do it.
Yeah, spend $10 on popcorn.
Please do. Please spend all your money at the movie theater.
Also, do the Regal Unlimited because like you can get 10% off concessions. And Regal should also be a sponsor for us. That would be
for
great.
sure. And if you live in Tennessee, Regal is actually a Tennessee company. I don't know if you know this, Jerrilyn.
I did not
Their
know that.
headquarters are in Knoxville, Tennessee.
We drive by them very often whenever we go to the mountains.
I'm shooketh.
Yeah. So represent Regal. Now, to talk a little bit about Millie, like you said, she is deaf. She's a deaf actress too in real life.
Really?
Yeah, she's a deaf person.
I like when it is accurate as well. Like I don't like when I understand why it can't be always accurate like that, and people are actors playing, these characters.
For sure.
It makes it more special to me, like especially because like in Breaking Bad, like Patrick and I are watching that show, the son in the show, his name's Walter Jr. He is his character has cerebral palsy, but the actor also has cerebral palsy.
Right.
And I was like, oh my god, that's amazing that they give people these opportunities,
right? And
they can also incorporate that into their characters.
Yeah, for sure. Especially with people like this. I mean, their roles are just way more limited by nature of who they are. And for John Krasinski, he says that it was non-negotiable to cast a deaf person to play this character because the character's deaf. Mm-hmm. And, because of that, she gave such an honest performance because it's just the way she lives her everyday life. And she also really helped be a guide to help the production of what sound is, in the situation, and like how to navigate through life without it or whatever. Especially if you have a character that's deaf, how can you not have somebody who has experienced that to, guide your way of the role of that character and how they interact with everything.
With her character specifically, it does add a different layer to the plot because it's like, imagine what this life in general is like for them, but add this crazy apocalyptic, aspect to it, and it's like that is just even more terrifying in nature because like there are things happening around Millie the actress, but Reagan the character, that we were like, oh my god, like she has no idea of what's going on.
For sure, yeah,
it's just crazy.
And we get to kind of see that through like her perspective sometimes, and everything is muffled, and sometimes she doesn't see what's going on around her, and that causes a lot of the tension that we see in the movie. And that whole perspective shifting through Reagan's eyes is Millie's idea.
Really?
Like, yeah, she helped come up with that. So I think she's amazing. Her character is an emotional one too. She blames herself for the death of her younger brother.
Now, I really not enjoy this aspect. It's a very sad aspect, but I mean, I enjoy the depth because the whole family is hurting. They're all experiencing this loss at the same time together, but they all deal with it in their own different way, and they all blame themselves in their own way as well. Like you go through it specifically, and like the daughter, blames herself so much that she thinks that her father resents her for it.
Yeah.
And that's a big plot point where
for sure
he doesn't.
She definitely does blame herself, and like you said, feels like her father resents her. I do have a question for you about this whole situation where there's a scene where John doesn't let Millie's character go with him on an expedition while Noah's character does get to tag along, even though he actually doesn't want to go.
He doesn't want to, but she does.
She does. What do you think is going on here? Do you think because he's concerned because she's deaf? Do you think it's because of her siblings passing? Or do you think it's a gender role kind of scenario?
I think it is a combination of things because I was thinking about this too. It's like, why didn't he? But one, they're so close to the mom's due date, which they're supposed to be a big part of and help her because obviously giving birth is not an easy feat for a woman. and she clearly in that scene was in a lot of pain. But so I think that in one aspect, somebody needed to be there with her. In another aspect, I do think that it is like a bias situation, or maybe even a gender role stereotypical kind of thing, making, you know, the young son the man of the house, because maybe in some way, shape, or another, maybe the father eventually assumed that he's going to pass in some way to protect the family, because that is something that parents typically do, is to sacrifice themselves for the good of their family.
Yeah, or in general, just like this kind of world.
Yeah,
who knows when your day's going to be your last? Yeah.
Or I think that another thing that really popped up to me was like, maybe, like, I mean, because a lot of the time we do things without realizing it. So I think that maybe he was, you know, letting that resentment show without admitting, like, yes, I don't want you to go because you are responsible for the death of our son. But, you know, because sometimes it can be like
subconscious.
Yes, not something that is super like obvious to the person until somebody points it out, and then they're like, oh shit.
Well, talking about the third child, Noah, he's the middle child of the family. He just seems so scared.
I get it. I'm a middle child.
He's terrified. I sense he has a big heart. I feel like him and Reagan, Millie's character, I feel like they have a connection somewhat with each other, because while they're out on their expedition, John and Noah, they talk about it a little bit. Noah's like, hey, you should talk to her about it, that you don't blame her, that you love her.
Clearly that means to me that the young boy and the sister clearly have enough communication.
Yeah, they have a relationship.
In each other, where she maybe has expressed that to him, or maybe he's just observant.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, I think his character, like I said, he's really scared, but I think he has a big heart.
You know, and that's also something that, I mean, as a middle child, I understand. But like the oldest child, being that she is deaf, maybe she got a little bit more attention in some aspect because it was a little bit challenging. I'm not sure specifically. And so maybe because he's the middle child, they just assume like, oh yeah, whatever, he's good. He's good.
Right.
And then they had a baby. So then like the youngest one who died, a lot of the time attention goes to the baby.
Yeah,
so maybe he like wasn't the center of attention a lot of the time. So he's just observing the situation.
And he doesn't have the confidence.
Yeah,
so
I think so.
That's interesting. I never thought about why middle children are classified the way they are, but now that's making a lot of sense to me.
Well, I mean, typically they're like, I mean, right, not to say anything about my parents, but like, you know, and not my siblings. I love them, but my oldest sister is kind of, you know, she set the tone for what was to come for the rest of us. So like, she did anything bad, we heard about it. We heard about it, and like we had to learn from it. So like she kind of was not like a problem child, but she just did things more, and it set the standard.
Yeah, and also problem children do get more attention just by nature than like you know, somebody who doesn't act out. Well, you don't have to address them as often.
I didn't really act out a lot. I was also very anxious, but I also did well in school because I tried. I wanted to do well. Yeah. So they didn't really have to worry about me a lot of the time, which was kind of annoying.
Because then you ended up getting ignored a little bit, maybe.
A little bit. And then at some point when I was struggling, they're like, whoa, you're always doing good. And I'm like, sorry. Did I do it for attention? No, I just didn't care. I was at a point in my life where I just didn't care. But now my brother, being the baby, he always got the attention.
Why do you think?
I don't know. I don't know. He was just a little, I love him. He's still a little asshole, but I don't know. It's definitely something that's weird. I don't know if like you have that experience at all.
As far as attention is concerned, it's really interesting. I feel like me and my siblings have like a personal relationship with our mom, for example, where like we all have our own relationship with her. Where like I feel like me and her butted heads a lot. Yeah. So when I moved out of the house, I was like, okay, I'm gonna do everything I can to get my little brothers out of there as soon as possible, so they don't have to live under her roof anymore and suffer.
Oh my!
And then like. A few years later, you know, I talked to my siblings and I'm like, and the closest one next to me loves our mom, has no problems, get along perfectly fine. And I just, it broke my brain a little bit because I was like, wait, what? How is this possible?
Just to clarify though, you have a larger gap between your siblings than most people do. Like you and your next closest brother are 6 years apart, right?
Oh, okay.
And then your youngest brother is like what, like 13 years younger than you or something like that?
Something like that, yeah.
Something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you've got a larger span where you were just in completely different developmental phases.
Yeah, for sure.
That's definitely really interesting because like my sister and I are 4 years apart. So she's 4 years older than me, and my brother is 3 years younger than me. So we're a little bit closer in age, but we still had like enough of a gap that it was like, we were just at different stages in our lives. Like,
for sure.
When my sister was a senior in high school, I was still in middle school. doing middle school, annoying middle school cringe shit.
It's just the way I'm thinking about it though. So like when I was like 14, for example, like I already wanted to move out, hated my mom. 6 years later, I'm 20 and I see my brother's 14 now.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I want to get you out of there, homie. But then they have no problems with each other.
He's like, bless up. Bless up.
Yeah, it turns
like,
out you were the problem.
What happened? No. Times change, people change.
Yeah,
so maybe it was
true.
like the different environment, maybe it wasn't as bad as it was for me, or maybe I am just a drama queen. Who knows?
Am I the villain? That's you.
Am I the problem? So this family lives on a farm.
Yeah.
Over a year after the death of their youngest child, John and Emily are shown living their life in a secluded farm in nature, raising their 2 kids. As Emily is doing laundry, the camera pans up to reveal that she is pregnant.
Simply kill me.
One of the last things you want to be during an apocalypse, I'm sure. The logistics just sound awful. Birth, I hear, is typically a noisy endeavor. Usually you make noise when you give birth.
I mean, literally screaming, you have contractions, you're in pain.
Yeah.
It sounds horrible, but I mean, I will say they all seem very resourceful. I mean, the mother character is, taking her blood pressure every day, checking the baby's heartbeat every day, and like writing it on a calendar. Even has the due date marked out. And I'm like, damn, girl, did y'all like plan this baby? Because like it sure feels like it. Like, why would you plan to have a baby after that?
Talking about planning, I feel like I want to take a moment to talk about the set production of this movie, because oh my gosh, I feel like so much of it is planned out. It's like they thought of every aspect and facet of living in this world.
I loved it because like the red lights to indicate that she's in like having birth. So good.
Yeah. Well, it's just when making sounds and this world kills you, you have to live your life in a way that doesn't make any sounds.
I feel like I'd be stomping, so like I just would not be able to live in a life like this at all. Like
you're a loud person. You're a loud individual. Yeah.
It is what it is. I mean, I never shut up. Like I said, like
you'd be yapping to death.
I'd be yapping. I'd be laughing, and I sing a lot. Like I would be like, "Am I not allowed to live?" Like I'd simply be like dead
immediately.
Yeah, immediately. I'd be like that old man, just. Ah!
Well, in this movie, you can see trails of sand laid out, you referenced it earlier, across like streets, the paths in their farm, so they don't make any noise when they step. There are areas of floorboards that you see marked out,
paint.
So they know where to step, so the hardwood doesn't make any creak sounds.
I kind of like the creaky sounds. They're always kind of relaxing to me.
Well, you'd be gone in this world immediately. Even at the convenience store at the beginning of the movie, you'll see that all the shelves are cleared out. People have ransacked this place.
Except for the bags of chips.
Except for a display fully stocked with bags of chips. Why?
Because they're loud.
Because they're noisy.
I didn't think about that. Because I'd be like, ooh, chips.
I just made the connection. Because I was thinking, they're not all empty. I saw a bunch of chips. Oh, wait.
I feel like this movie pays a huge attention to detail. Throughout all this, like just visual elements, you can tell. I mean, when they play Monopoly, for example, they also use like these little cotton
like little
figures.
crochet pieces and stuff too.
So they don't make any noise. I just feel like this movie is so thought out, and I think it gives. There's so much respect to the production of this film that was given. I feel like, and this was a small budget movie too. I think it was around 35 million. Ended up making around 300 million at the box office. So they didn't have a ton of money, and because it's so respectful to that kind of thing, I think it makes the world feel like its own thing, its own, just in general atmosphere. And,
it is its own atmosphere, and it's also its own like creature feature in its own way. I mean, like,
you're right.
We have it like because we have various apocalyptic worlds that we live in the horror genre. I mean, we have zombies. Of course, virus outbreaks that turn into zombies. I mean, there's just so many different stories you could tell with that. I mean, I don't know. I feel like vampires. There are some vampire end of the world kind of movies. Well, this one.
What I like about this one so much is I feel like those movies oftentimes focus on what happens in those scenarios. And while this movie, like I said, is very thoroughly thought out as like how you live, I think it's expressed in a very internal way, in a very intimate way, as we see this movie through one single family.
Yes.
We don't really know what happened. Or what's going on.
Of course, I still have questions.
How everybody else is living. We just see this one family and we get to connect to them and follow their story and how they interact with the world, as opposed to like a lens, a broader lens about like the intrigue of an apocalyptic world.
Now, I think it's going to be fascinating because it's like, I don't know if maybe they wrote this with the intent of having more.
No, they did not.
That's really fascinating because they really do a good job of leaving it off on a cliffhanger, for one. They also do really well with some of the, like, you know, they have all of these like newspapers and articles posted and things like that. And they're like questions that maybe, you know, the father figure was like trying to answer, like, what is its weakness? What, like, all of these things that, like, we as the audience also have the same questions, like, what the hell is this creature? Like, where did it come from? Why is it there? Like, I want to know. Like, it's just fascinating to me.
I like that too, because even though it's kind of maybe a little cliche or a little campy, they show you all of those newspaper clippings in the whiteboard with the questions at the very beginning of the movie. Mm-hmm. So you're thinking about it very early on. Yeah. And you're waiting for it to be resolved. And
it's kind of satisfying. Kind of like, you know, a murder mystery in a way where like there's, you could tell like there's hints and stuff of like somebody knows what's going on, and we're slowly learning about it over the course of the film. Well, it's not too long before we start seeing the creatures again. After a fake out where the kids were playing Monopoly with cotton player icons and a lantern gets knocked over, making the first real big noise in the movie. That lantern fire, by the way, is a real fire that they had on set.
Wow.
Yeah, right next to those kids. And, you know, I think it looks amazing.
It does look amazing.
So good job, kids, for, you know, not catching on fire. John decides to take Noah out on an informative trip the next morning. Millie wants to come, like we mentioned before, but John doesn't let her. I'm not quite sure what the reasoning is. I think it's mostly because he's trying to protect her personally, but maybe there are some like gender roles at play there. Despite Noah not wanting to go himself, Reagan storms to her room upset and tries the new hearing aids that her dad left for her, only to find out that this newest attempt at helping her hear has failed yet again. She finds the toy airplane from the beginning of the movie and leaves the farm. You know, she ends up going to, I guess, like the grave in a sense of her little brother and kind of like setting it in place.
And like, I guess, you know, just, I don't know, just reminiscing, maybe even sitting there blaming herself, wishing things had gone differently. But like to dwell, I mean, there's only so much you can do. I mean, it's already been done. You can't take it back. And I don't think it was her fault. She was trying to be a good sister and be like, hey, here's this toy. Like, just be cool, basically.
And I mean, she's a kid too. It's hard to blame like a kid.
Especially since their sense of normalcy is disrupted entirely. That's why having a kid in this apocalyptic world would be fucking shit.
Yeah. I'm hoping that the little kid, he at least died, like, I mean, quickly, swiftly, and, you know.
Yeah. Oh, I don't even want to think about that poor kid. Because, I mean, like, 4 years old. Him's a baby.
Yeah, for sure. You know, everybody's gone now. And, of course, while everybody's gone, this is when Emily goes into labor.
Yeah, which is convenient.
Yeah. She walks downstairs and steps on an upturned nail.
I knew it was going to happen because they foreshadow it, of course. And I'm like, oh, no, you're going to home alone her.
I remember the first time I watched this, it just freaked me out. It looked so painful.
I'd be screaming my head off. Dead.
Yeah.
Again.
Yeah, it's not, man. Yeah, I don't know. And it's just, I think part of the reason it's so like, it works so well is just because I feel like we can imagine that.
Yeah.
You know?
Imagining how to be quiet, you're in pain. When I'm in pain, I'm like, I don't know. It's like a display. I'm like, I just flail my arms. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe this has happened to me. But like, I have to have quiet. It's really weird. If I have anybody talking to me, I feel like it just makes my pain worse. I'm like, shut up. Yeah. It's really goofy.
Well, because of this, she drops some stuff, makes a noise, and now there's one of those creatures inside her house, and she's completely by herself. She manages to find her way upstairs into the bathtub where we start to see her bleed into the bathtub. Luckily, by this point, John and Noah get back to the farm.
What makes it more painful to watch is she's literally holding the baby in. Like, she's physically, like, holding her vagina and is like, nope, can't have the baby right now. We're just gonna have to wait.
Yeah, and she's having a tough time, obviously. Yeah. And the monster, you know, is creeping up on her closer and closer. Luckily,
I'm sure she's contracting like a motherfucker because typically, you know, birth contractions a lot of the time. Unless you're a unicorn.
Well, John decides to tell Noah to go like set off some fireworks that they had planned to set off, and when he does, that's when that kind of allures the creature away from her, and she's able to give birth.
Oh, the scene was so intense. Just the build-up, the tension. She's in pain. She knows that, like, she's like hopeful that somebody's coming to do their part. And then as soon as those fireworks go off, she just lets out this big, like, I wanted to scream with her. Like, ooh!
I really loved how they handled the birth scene in this because while I think there is a level of frustration being a viewer and being like, why would you get pregnant right now? Why would you do that? You know, sometimes it's not always a choice, obviously. But it was very refreshing to see Emily Blunt's character just be so resourceful.
Yeah.
And she's so smart about it. She's very competent.
She's checking her own vitals.
Yeah, she's checking her own vitals, but not just that. Like, physically, while she's having these contractions, she knows that she's in danger and that everyone potentially around her is in danger too. And she's doing everything so calmly and, like, so well. She's handling it herself. She does ultimately handle all of it herself.
Yeah.
And when John finds her, like, she's taking care of everything, basically.
Yeah.
He takes her to their, like, safe house, essentially, where she couldn't physically get to after birth. But, like, overall, it's almost empowering in a way. Because it's like, she's going through this, but she handles it.
You know,
pretty much.
I make insensitive remarks about her being pregnant. Like, why would you do that? But, you know, at this point in time, they probably don't have, access to birth control, or maybe she chose this, or maybe she didn't choose it, and maybe they just don't have any good means of contraception. And it's like, hey, I mean, at least they're doing what they can with it.
Yeah, and I mean, it's John Krasinski and Emily Blunt. I mean,
yeah.
And you know, you see the romantic scene between them when, like, they put the headphone in each other's ear. And
I'm sure the level of acting for them is probably not much there because
there's chemistry. Come on.
I mean, obviously they're married in real life. They have children together in real life. So, I mean, I'm sure that they are pulling from their own experiences of love, being together. It's really cute because it's really nice to me. At least, I don't know, I fangirl a little bit when I see people who are actually together in real life playing couples. Like another film that I've seen before, Daniel Craig and Rachel Weisz. They are married in real life, or I think they still are. Hopefully, they were together in a film, and I was like, that is so cute.
Yeah,
makes me like viscerally like.
Do you aspire to that a little? Maybe you and Patrick, maybe you and your partner could, you know. No.
He wouldn't do it. He wouldn't act in a film with me.
One of those, you know, timepieces with the frilly shirts and the...
Okay, maybe.
Oh, okay.
Maybe
there's something there. Who knows? Well, the baby's born. That's great, but that causes a problem because now there's a baby.
Babies make noise, yeah.
Babies make freaking noise.
It's already... Blah, 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 and I'm like, shut up!
Were you like freaking out because the baby was like...
I mean, I've seen it, so I know the babies make noise. So I was expecting that. I forgot what they did. I knew they had something planned, but then I was like, oh shit!
What they did have planned was so cool. They made like a makeshift bunker, and then had like this box that was soundproof. This little box that they put the baby in with an oxygen mask.
A little baby oxygen mask. It was cute. I just never knew that they had like a tiny oxygen mask.
Well, yeah,
like
they
that.
have to.
Yeah, for like the NICU and stuff like that.
I guess I've never seen it. I've been thankful. Well, I'm not like venturing out the hospital. I was like, oh, look at these babies.
They're showing in movies, you know, where they show all those babies.
They don't really show those types of things in movies a lot of the time either. So, I mean, I'm like, I don't know.
But they did a good job.
I just didn't know. It was very cute.
It's quiet in there. You know, you see earlier on in the movie, this movie does such good foreshadowing. In general, the quality of filmmaking for this movie is just, like I said, I can't stop saying it. It's just so well planned out. Like everything. This script was obviously written several times over to make things connect from the end to the beginning repetitively. Because you see the kids putting newspaper up on the walls to help soundproof that little bunker in general. And, you know, now that John has brought Emily and their new son to this bunker and they're both safe, he's tasked with going back out and finding the other two kids.
Yeah. This moment between them is very sad, bittersweet, but also like, I don't know, like they also, the level of trust here in the family, like I said, they're such a close-knit family, so I can only imagine, like, they're first of all still grieving the loss of that 4-year-old. And the mom is also blaming herself. She's like, I wasn't holding anything. I could have held my son.
Yeah.
And so, like, it's very sad because it comes full circle. Like, they're all individually blaming themselves in their own way.
Yeah.
And they're
and
dealing
I think
with
that's what
it
you
in the
do. I
best
mean,
way.
it's ironic because it's kind of like Survivor syndrome,
Yeah.
But in general, there are survivors.
If I had gone, maybe things would. Yeah. A lot of the time. I mean, you can't help but to reflect. I mean, it really makes you question your mortality.
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
the truth is, though, you can't. I mean, it shoulda, woulda, coulda. There's nothing you can do now.
exactly.
You can't go back.
Other than protect your family now and
Yeah.
do what you can to move forward. And that's another thing that I like about this conversation, because we don't have a lot of conversations like verbally in this film. So this verbal conversation was also really impactful to me, because they were discussing the children, and she's like, "What about the other children? What about the other children?" And
Yeah.
at first she worries, and then she's like, "Well, they're resourceful, and our the other son, like, he knows how to wait. He knows to wait for you. But like, they're both so resourceful that the children find each other and are navigating, and then the father has to go and look for them."
Yeah, and I want to mention this right here is a good moment, seeing them interact with each other, where I do feel like, this movie in a lot of ways, I think, is about family, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, John Krasinski says himself that this movie is a film about family, and just a specific situation between children and their parents and parenting in general.
Yeah.
Where I feel like, John's character, he is he's a big time protector. I mean, he's gone above and beyond to create a sustainable life for him and his children, where he's like looking out for every instance, every opportunity to keep them safe.
And that really plays a part with the stereotypical kind of gender roles, where the father is supposed to be the man of the house, the provider, the protector. And while he does that, I mean, they also kind of all do their part to help, make it all like function like a well-oiled machine. He does such a good job of, like going out, the hunting, the gathering, all of the things like literally all of those like stereotypical, but it's mainly just survival. They're all surviving together, which is really cool to see.
Yeah, for sure. Emily too. I mean, she's a big time caregiver. You can tell. I mean, she's homeschooling them. She's the one that's doing all the farming.
I would have just given up on that.
You wouldn't have tried to teach
I
him
would
math?
have been like, "Baby, we don't know how to read. Like, it's fine. Let's go."
What? You wouldn't teach him how to read?
It's a joke. It's a joke.
They need that, Geraldine. Come on.
Like, they don't need to know how to divide at this moment.
Yeah, he's learning how to do math.
I mean, I love math, though, so I could eat logarithms for breakfast.
Oh, okay. So you wouldn't mind taking a few lessons from your mama?
I mean, my mom wouldn't teach me math, but yeah.
What would she teach you?
Horror movie knowledge. Actually, no, she's pretty good in the healthcare field. So
Okay. Well, the mom, like I said, she does the education. She also does she does a lot of the farming, and obviously she is just like a caregiver. I mean, she's the one that's taking care of all the children, attending to their emotional needs, and in general, John and Emily are just. They have children in real life together. They have two children, and actually, they started making this movie like a couple months after they had their most recent child. And I just wonder if they're as good parents in real life as they are in this movie.
you can only hope, but
Because
I mean,
God, they're like Bailey said earlier, they're resourceful.
Yeah.
They seem to like have a grasp on like how to lead their children and how to like make life better for them. And there's just their whole life is their children. Like everything they do in the movie is for the sake of their children.
well, I mean, not that parents can't have an identity outside of their own, but I was gonna say, as a parent, you should your children should be your world, your life. But again, they can also still have an identity outside of their children. Their children does not have to be the end all be all of them. They themselves are parents, but they are parents to this child. I don't know. That's a tangential piece, just because sometimes I worry that people view parents as just, you're a parent now. That's all you are. And it's not true.
Well, but to some extent, I mean, especially like in a world like this where like they're kind of helpless. I mean, they're helpless in just regular life too, for sure. But I mean,
the thing of it is that like, if you are not seeking out protecting your children as a parent, as a to provide for them, like it's just that you're just not being a good parent a lot of the time. Like, you have to protect them and ultimately think about how like. I'm like, I would be such an anxiety-ridden person, like even more so than I am as a person in a normal world without these things that we know of. Government's kind of creepy sometimes, but I mean, I would just be full-fledged of anxiety. I'd just be like, all right, kids, we're all just gonna go to sleep now and not think about the problems.
So what do you think? Do you think you could take up a role? If it's you and Patrick and you have to contribute and try to help. Do you think you could calm him down and come up with a plan on what to do next?
I'm not good at making plans when I'm anxious, but I could calm them down and be like, oh, let's all just take a breath, take a moment here. But I'm not good with, I'm not self-regulating. I'm not good at that.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Well, I think John and Emily are. I think, you know, that, like I said, they just put so much
They're
priority
adults. I'm an adult, but I'm not a real adult. You know what I mean?
Yeah, not yet.
Not yet.
Give us
Maybe
another 30 years.
Maybe
you know?
one day.
Yeah. Well, John, he makes the ultimate sacrifice.
Oh my God, he does. And what a sacrifice. That is what I imagine like a parent would do. But in the aspect of like saving your child from, you know, any, like I would jump in front of the bullet for my child, kind of like that kind of thing. Yes, do it. That's a good parent. Sorry, it took me a while to get there. I'm not good at articulating my words sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, and it's a very emotional moment too, because I mean, he got hurt previously and he stands up and his eyes meets Millie's. And he said what he had to say. He signs, I love you. I have always loved you. And then lets up just a guttural scream.
I cried.
And it's such a clever way of like doing this. You know, oftentimes we'll see like these sacrificial things or whatever. Yeah. And I think there's a version of this movie where it's very gimmicky. I mean, you can you can pitch this movie in a sentence, right? You know, where it's like, you make sound, you die in this world, and that's it. And you can make like just situational scenes that apply. Oh, look how cool this is. Yeah. But that's not this movie at all. This movie is a movie with heart, and it stands to reason that the climactic scene of this movie is an emotional one of like Reagan getting a sense of closure. I mean, he's gifting her this thing. He's like helping her let go of the trauma of her little sibling passing
essentially
away.
He's like, I love you so much that I will save you and die for you.
Yeah. And I mean, she thinks that he doesn't love her. I mean, when she was with her brother on top of the grain silo, she was saying, oh, he'll come for you.
Yeah, he's not going to come for me.
Yeah. His sacrifice allows them enough time to kind of escape, meet up back with their mom and new sibling. And as they go down into the basement, they see, she sees for the first time all like the auditory research that her dad has been doing this whole time to try to make a hearing aid for her that works.
Yep.
And like really shows how much he cared and all the preparation that he's taken into protecting them just in general.
Speaking of the hearing aid, I thought that was very fascinating. I mean, obviously that's got to be painful. But like the whole plot point that is something that is very like a weakness.
Yeah, that it like outputs like some frequency that affects them specifically.
Like that was fascinating. I didn't remember that part, and I was like, oh, like that's interesting to see where they go with that.
For sure. And while they're down there in the basement, there's another monster that comes around.
Yeah.
Finds them down there, and you know she turns her hearing aid back on because it makes her think, oh, I understand now. Mm-hmm. And then the monster starts freaking out because they don't like this frequency that her hearing aids output, and it gives the mom Emily enough of an opportunity to take her shotgun, shoot him in the head, kills the monster.
Epic.
However, this makes a noise, and
more
through the security cameras we just see a bunch of them start heading.
It's two. There were 3 in the area.
Yeah.
So they killed 1 and 2 more. The other 2 remaining in the area.
And they start coming towards the house. And all we see next is her turning up as Millie turning up the signal to help amplify the speaker of her hearing aids. And then Emily loads her shotgun, cocks her shotgun.
Love it.
And then fade to black.
Badass.
Yeah.
But also, we forgot to mention the one. I mean, it's not really a big part, but it is interesting when the father and son are coming back from their little like fishing excursion and stuff like that. I don't know if maybe I interpreted it incorrectly, but it seemed like there was maybe this guy that they come across. He had his dead wife next to him. To me, since she had blood and like open guts and stuff, either 1, the monster had gotten to it, or 2, he resorted to cannibalism. That's where my brain went. I was like, is that what I'm supposed to understand?
I did not get that vibe at all.
I don't know.
Then why would he yell afterward? Yeah, if he's trying to survive.
But like he wanted to die after because maybe he was like, oh.
I definitely think the love of his life was killed by a monster. And
I don't know. Listen, it's not explicit.
Yeah. I'm giving you my interpretation. The love of his life died, and he doesn't see life worth living anymore, so he yells.
Same thing. Maybe he ate the love of his life because survival. That's all he's got. Boom.
He would have had blood on its mouth.
He would have, I guess, but
He
Well,
also
it's-
didn't have his dentures in, so he wouldn't be able to chew
Yeah, that
the
was
meat.
definitely really interesting. It was almost like he was like building up this big scream by like scrunching up his face.
Yeah, very visually stunning for sure. I find it interesting though. You know, a little more information adds to the bucket of Geraldine the serial killer. Her mind is on cannibalism. You know, cannibalism is on her mind.
never eat a human.
See, that didn't sound very convincing. I don't know why when you said that.
I don't want
You're
to
like,
eat a
I would
human.
never eat a human.
Don't give me human. I promise. It doesn't sound like it would be appetizing.
Yeah, but she also loves vampires.
You said that real. You actually sounded real southern right then. Let me tell you. You
I'm
said
just
she
saying,
also loves vampires.
You get bit by one, I don't know if Patrick's gonna be safe.
I don't like blood though. I would be a horrible vampire. I'd die.
You think so?
I know so. I'd be like, ugh, like, just thinking that it's gross. I'm like, ooh. It sounds cool in theory. I like the aesthetic, the baddie aesthetic. I mean, I already have the pale skin. I'd easily fit in.
You do have the pale skin, very pale.
But I'm not incredibly fast or strong, so.
There's not a lot of dialogue in this movie,
There's not.
like you mentioned before. That was an initial concern for making the film, as a lot of tension and pacing of a movie is actually, like, when in editing, it's cut around the dialogue. And that's how we create, you know, that tension, that feel of suspense, like you mentioned earlier. So it was really important that the actors' performances and their facial expressions were good enough to, like, convey, like, the sense of tension and fear.
I mean, they all do it really well. They all wear the fear on their face really, really well. Specifically, I mean, John Krasinski, the way that he, like, furrows his brows, but, like, also, like, you know, something about his eyes. He's, like, he widens his eyes a bit. Like, it's like, ooh. He's, like... I'm like, oh, like I would not want to be in that world because you would just make me a little bit more anxious. Like, but he's being so serious with his children. Like, please, like this is serious. Be quiet.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, I also
it's
feel
really
like the
good.
kids trusted him.
Yeah, they did.
Like like when they knocked that lantern over, they were immediately like looking at him to like see what's going on, you know, what to do next.
Yeah.
Because they knew he would have it handled. Being an older brother, I've already had a little bit of that experience where like I grew up, I was writing music, I was making these things, and I wish I had somebody to like just push me in the right direction, or like, oh, can you help me with this one thing, or teach me how to play this guitar chord on a guitar or something like that.
Yeah.
And I love being in that role where like people can look to me for assistance and just be, like I said, dependable.
I don't think people do that for me. I don't think people are like, hey, Geraldine, do you know how to do this thing? They probably don't do that. They're probably like, that's the last person I'm going to ask.
Do you think maybe one day you'll be that person for somebody?
As like an 85-year-old, maybe.
85.
I'll be like, back in my day. That's exactly what I'm going to sound too.
Yeah. Well, I love this movie. I don't know about you. I thought that it's a family film made to bring parents and children together, personally.
Yeah.
I think kids are meant to realize the reason for their parents' instruction.
Yeah.
And that parents are reminded that it requires love to communicate with their children honestly. Like, I feel like that's a whole thing right now in general, like how to parent and what is good parenting. Nobody knows.
That is a big question.
And I feel like the parenting we see in this movie is just, it all comes out of love. And I feel like regardless of what is the right or wrong way, I do think love is an important component of it.
Now, I do like this in the aspect of this film specifically because they don't have the opportunity to yell at the children, but whether they wanted to or not.
What do you think? Should you yell at your kids?
I think that you don't need to yell at anybody. Yelling is like the least effective way to communicate or convey what you need to say, because I think that nobody responds well to yelling. I think that if you just respond by yelling, you're just going to make people angry and upset, and then they're going to be less likely to listen to what you say.
Now, do you live by your own word and you're like, oh, I never yell at people?
I don't typically, like, I may raise my voice but not yell. Like, I may just be like, I may get a little passionate, get a little loud, but not really yelling. I've never been like, I'm gonna yell at you. Like, I'm just not really that kind of person.
Really? Because that sounded supernatural from you.
No. First of all, that hurt. Second of all, I just don't really. It's like a lot of energy for me. It's like draining.
Have you ever done the silent treatment?
1000%. That's an effective tool. No, I'm just kidding.
Use it. This is my tip.
No, just kidding. I don't do that. But, I mean, I have done that before. It's just, I don't know. You learn to communicate as you get older. And then, like, you're like, man, I wish people were better at communicating.
Have you learned to communicate better with your parents as you've gotten older, or has it always been kind of the same?
Yes. However, I mean, people are like older people who are older than us typically people don't like change a lot of
You're
the
saying
time.
people are set in their ways.
They're set in their ways.
Okay.
Sometimes people don't like to receive nudges about, hey, maybe you should learn to communicate better. Or things like, hey, you've had a hard life. Maybe you want to go to therapy. Nobody likes that, I guess.
Yeah.
So I'm a therapy pusher. I'm sorry. I like it. I think everyone should go to therapy.
Yeah. It's
Whether
interesting.
it's like verbal therapy or maybe you find a different tool for therapy. Just find a therapy and do it.
You know, I talked earlier on in the podcast about like growing up and like having a hard time with my mom and just getting along with her and our situation with each other. And I've grown so much appreciation for my mom as an adult.
Yeah.
Knowing that like she like raised us by herself for so
That is
long
crazy.
with 2 jobs and just like everything she had to endure
That
was
stresses
just
me out.
way
for
more
her.
significant than anything I ever had to endure. And like just the abuse she went through like men and other things like that. And now I just have so much respect for her and so much appreciation for her. And also the separation helps. The separation does help. And I think we've both matured more and like she's better at communicating and so am I.
That's the thing that really gets me though, is like when our parents became parents, they were our age or younger.
Puts it into perspective.
It does put it, because am I mentally ready to have a child? No. In no way, shape, or form. I'm not mature yet. And I'm like, why do people have kids right now? Like, I would feel like a teen mom. But then I'm like, oh, they're at that age. I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to do?
But some people...
Bitch, I'm an adult.
Yeah, people know what to do. Like, it's in some of us, you know.
I'm the cool aunt for a few more years.
It's just a
fine.
few more, huh?
Maybe like 10 more. My nieces and nephews and all of the like will be like in high school when I am ready for children.
Right.
I'll be like, okay, who wants to play with their cousin?
Now, like I said before, I love this movie. Let's get down to rating it.
Yep.
I love it so much. Great film, high quality film, charming. It resonated with me a lot, made me think of myself and my family. It makes me think of what kind of person I want to lead in life and like just my responsibility to everybody else. And because of that, I give this movie a 10.
All right, we're starting high. Okay. It's gonna be tough to like give it like a number rating because it's really good, but then I also don't know what the other movies are like from those like bite-sized franchise. It's almost like, do I want to give it a number yet? Okay, either way, I like this movie. I thought it was really well done. It's intense. It's gripping. It's, you can't stop watching even though you're anxious. I mean, that's projecting. I was anxious watching it because I was anxious.
Very tense movie.
But there's no sound, so you have no idea what's going on. So you're like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And like, I think that is an effective way of communicating as well, because that's something that they pose to you whenever you go to like school for communications is like, what's more important, audio or video? And I'm like, oh shit, that's a good question. But really, you can't have one without the other. But it's like this movie had next to no audio other than like suspenseful music to kind of help set the tone or the scene. Other than like, they had ASL. Yeah. So either way, though, even the way that they were doing it, like even if it was intense or whatever, it's like, wow, like there was no like verbal audio. Like hardly.
Well, what I want to say, and I don't mean to cut you off during your rating, is just that. You say there's no audio. I would rather say that the audio that was there was very intentional. I feel like there was actually a lot of sound design committed to the movie to give that, anxious vibe that you're saying. But
even if it were silent, like completely 100% a silent film, and that we were just watching the visuals, I think it was so effective. What they had done was so effective to tell a story that I feel like a lot of viewers would have been able to watch and create their own narrative with it and, pull from it what they needed to. Because, I mean, it's a very good story. Very fun universe, and I'm kind of excited to see. And it's really cool to know that they didn't really plan this with the intent to expand it, but I like to know that because it's like, hey, it was so successful that maybe they were like, maybe we can make more of this. So I do think that it was a very fun film. Not intended to be fun specifically, but it was, a fun watch, and it was well done. So that makes it even more enjoyable to me. So I would say it's probably a 9 out of 10 because there are things that, I mean, I think I'm going to be willing to change it depending on how the other films are. I just can't definitively give it my 10.
Okay, fair enough.
So that's my reasoning.
So that makes us a 9.5 out of 10 for this movie. Obviously, only movie we covered so far out of the 3, so it gets to first place automatically. We'll see if it moves, considering we have another 2 movies to watch.
That's true. We do.
Yeah. Bailey, what do you give the movie?
I give it a 10 out of 10. I really enjoyed the movie, and I especially like getting to rewatch it. This was my second time watching the movie, and it was so memorable because the first time I watched it was when it came out in theaters. It was so memorable. I loved seeing all the foreshadowing that they did, just getting to appreciate the commitment that they had to all of the sets, and again, the foreshadowing, setting things up, and the environment, and appreciating again how like they didn't have anything that made any noise, and the lights turning to red, and all that stuff. I really got to appreciate it this time around. And it was just super enjoyable. And if I can rewatch a movie over and over and over again, it gets a 10 out of 10 for me.
Woo! Nice to hear. Well, thank you everybody for listening. Go follow us on Spotify. Subscribe to us on YouTube. We love you guys. We'll see you next time. We're going to be covering all 3 of these bad boys. There's a new one coming out. Hang out with us and watch it with us. And we'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.
And don't forget, if you want to try out Vampons, you can try out our referral code of Fright Flight Pod on their website.
Yes, you can. Do it.
All right. We'll see you guys next week.
And suck up that... I was going to stop. I'm just going to stop. Never mind.
We'll see you guys next week.
Bye-bye.
Why did I say that?
What do you mean?
Thank you for listening to Fright or Flight, a Live Oaks Village production. This episode was hosted by Geraldine Johnson and Saul Alberto Arizmendi Ochoa. Editing and music composition by Saul Alberto Arizmendi Ochoa.